Welcome back to Introduction to Irrigation. My name is Tavis Douglas, and today we're going to finish up on a lab from our last video. So in our last video, we built a homemade movable irrigation system using pipe that we glued together. Well, today we're going to do something a little bit different. So we're actually going to fix a pipe here. So we're going to fix some irrigation, and today we're going to be using a threaded pipe actually. So instead of using glue, we're going to be using a few different components, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So in this particular situation, what we have here is we have a mainline water supply that comes up through this pipe, and this is feeding into this solenoid valve. If you remember, we demonstrated in some of these types of valves in class, or irrigation valves. And then this one here is a ball valve. So it's a manual valve you turn on and off with your hand. And it's running just a garden area where we're growing a few different vegetable plots. So we installed this a few months ago just to hook up some irrigation over there, and without realizing it, that this was a used valve. And as soon as we plumbed it in, it started to leak, and now, as you can see, the leak has gotten worse. So what I've done, so we're going to replace this valve today. So the first thing that you would want to do in this situation, if you are dealing with broken pipe, or in this situation, is to turn off the water supply. So this is a water on demand system, so it comes off the well. So the live side of the water is under pressure. So I've already done that. I've already turned off this particular well that feeds this system. So but it's still leaking, right? So even though I've turned off the water, there's still pressure in this water pressure in the line. So the first thing I want to do is relieve this pressure before I cut any pipe. If I started to mess with any of this stuff and I cut on the supply side of the valve where the water pressure is, it would make a mess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this valve, and I'm going to relieve some of the pressure. So I don't know if you can hear some of the you can hear the sprinklers behind me running. We'll wait for them to kick off, and before we mess with this pipe. So we're going to replace it with this valve here. So this is a brand new valve, and just to show you the difference between what I have here versus what you could have. So yesterday, or I'm sorry, in the last video, we discussed gluing pipe directly in, non-threaded pipe. So I don't know if you can see this, but I have one ball valve here that is completely slipped. There's no threads in it, and you glue pipe directly into it. And the other one I have here, also used, was a threaded version of the same thing. So this actually threads, or would be threads, on the inside. So in this situation, if I glue this, we'll get a little closer. If I were to glue this, I don't know if you could see the remnants of the pipe that's glued on the inside of this. When this busted, I think it got snagged by a rotavator or something. When this busted, we had to cut this out. So I had to saw this off, cut it out. So I can't reuse this anymore. I can't glue anything else on the inside. The pipe has already been glued in, so this is trash. On the other hand, we have a threaded version of the same thing. This one is broken too, but as you can see, the remnants of the pipe on the inside of this one, but the remnants of that pipe, there's threads on there. So I could actually back this fitting out and put a new fitting in there. As you can see on the other side, it still has the actual the threaded adapter. So this is part of this was the adapter that the pipe was glued into. We can unscrew it, and we could put a new fitting in there. So it's one of the virtues of threaded pipe versus glued in pipe. So you might ask why we would use threaded versus that. Situations where I deal with valves, these aren't necessarily, they're not that cheap, and some of your other irrigation fittings that you might deal with are also very expensive. And if you were to glue inline pipe in an inline device like this, glue it directly in, if it broke, you'd have to throw this away. In this case, I could salvage this, I can unscrew these, and I can reuse this piece here. So back to our situation here. So we still have some water pressure on the line, and we might just go ahead and make a mess and cut this. But anyway, so this system actually holds a lot of water in the pipes here. So In this situation, so this is the same thing. This is a threaded valve, right? So I can unscrew both sides of these if I wanted to. If this was not, in this situation, if this was glued into straight pipe and this was not a threaded valve, I would have a difficult time replacing this. And the reason is because I have my threaded adapter here. I have a short piece, it's hard to see, but this gray piece right here that's actually remnants of glue. This is the short piece of regular pipe. Then I have a coupling on here. So it's basically the coupling is a splice that splices pipe together. And then I have another short piece of pipe here that's actually glued into the main line here of the system. Well, I couldn't, in this situation, I couldn't cut this off and be able to glue a new valve on there very easily, or fit another, I can't fit another coupling in here. So I would have to cut this system, I would have to cut this off, pull it out, actually the whole thing. So I would have to go back to the main line and reconfigure this because this is non-threaded. None of this is, so I would have to replace all of this in the system. So, but because this is threaded, I don't have to do that. I can cut one side of it and unthread this ball valve, which is what we'll demonstrate. So we'll go ahead and we'll use our pipe saw. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this free and show you how to fix it. We might have a little extra added water pressure. You see it? All right, there we go. So if we didn't turn the water off before we did this, we would have a lot, it would have been a whole lot worse. Still coming out. All right, so now that we've released all the water pressure off of it, there's no more water left in the line, now we can actually go ahead and fix this. So because this is threaded on, there's a few other tools that we were using, or that we haven't discussed yet. One of those being a pipe wrench, and which is what we're going to use to de-thread this and maybe a couple other wrenches. First thing I'm going to do though is go ahead and, although I believe the safety goggles are a moot point at this juncture, but I'll go ahead and, for the sake of PPE, go ahead and put my gloves on and my glasses. All right, so now that it's cut free, I'm only going to cut one side off of this because that's all I need to. Again, like I said earlier, if we were to cut this, there's nowhere to put new fittings on. So what we're going to do is we're going to unthread this. We'll see if it'll, okay, we're lucky. We could do it by hand. So I can back this off and then that's it. Now I can put a new one on. So what we'll do is, these get foggy, so I'm going to take those off. So what I'm going to do is, I had actually purchased two threaded adapters for this. Now we are gluing straight pipe on this side of it, but this end is going to be threaded. So I'm going to use the same adapter that's already on here. So all I'm going to do is, I'm just not going to use this one, and I'm going to thread this one onto the pipe and then go ahead and rebuild my elbow and put a new coupling on here. So in order to do that though, we need something else we didn't discuss. Teflon tape, or as we call it, pipe dope. So it's a material, I'll go ahead and use the Teflon tape. It's a little easier, less messy. So basically, this is what we, and there's you see there's some remnants on this threaded end here. So when we're threading pipe together, we don't glue it together. We don't put glue on that. We don't put cleaner and then glue on this and then screw it on. It defeats the purpose of threading it. So because it binds and you would never get it off. So we use this this Teflon tape. So I'll go ahead and put this Teflon tape on. So as you can see, it's tape. I'm sure you've seen the rolls. Get it at any hardware store. And I'm going to make sure I thread it correctly. So you wrap it around the threads of the male side of the fitting. It doesn't take much, but I want to hold it in place. And basically what Teflon tape is, it does two things. Number one, it's going to seal the threads, so it minimizes leaks and things like that. And then it also makes threading your fittings on easier. So I've done that side already. I'm going to go ahead and put Teflon on this side of the valve. Make sure I'm going the right way with it. Wrap it a few times. And that's it. Put this back. And I'll go ahead and hand thread this fitting on. Alright. So now that we've done that, hand threading is okay, but water under pressure, this definitely would have the potential to leak. So this is where our wrenches come in handy. So now that I've threaded on this side, I'll go ahead and thread it back to the main supply side by hand. Okay, so this is bottomed out, but it's not in the right position that I want it to be in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to use a pipe wrench. And I'm going to nope. See if I can straighten it out. There we go. In that position, I'll go ahead and tighten this one. You have to be careful using a pipe wrench or any wrench on plastic PVC, because if you over tighten these fittings, you can actually break the PVC. Especially, it's more common if you're threading metal pieces of pipe into PVC threaded metal pieces. It has a tendency to, if you over tighten it, it could crack and hurt whatever it is you're trying to use. So I think that's going to be tight enough for what we're doing. So that's pretty much it on the threaded end of it. So now all we need to do is re-put our elbow, and then we're going to connect this back to the downflow or the submain of this irrigation system just using a coupling. Splice those together. So the other thing, we might need to make some measurements, or we might eyeball it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the depth of this fitting to know how far that pipe would go into it. So we're at about 1.25 inches, it looks like. That's 1.25 inches, and this one is 1 inch. And if I were to try to line it up on this pipe here, it looks like we've got maybe another 1/4 inch or so on there. Yep, about 1/4 inch. So where are we at? 1 inch, 1.25 inches. So we'll do 2.5 inches. So we're gonna need spare pipe for this, because I'm going to rebuild, because I can't use anything else, and although I could, but oh well. We're just going to go ahead and demonstrate this again. So 2.5 inches, I'm going to mark it on my pipe. And then we're going to glue it just like we did building the irrigation system. So now we're just gluing pipe together. So I'll get out my cleaner. I'll clean this version of it. Clean the inside of this adapter. It's time for glue, so I'll glue that. Glue this straight pipe into the fitting, right? And then we'll take our 90, which we need, and I will glue this on. Try to line it up as best as I can with the pipe. Okay, so coupling, we'll do the same thing. We can't just glue pipe in here and attach it to that, so we need a coupling for that. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this. All of it. Run glue, well, put glue in it. Glue this side. Push that down. Now the last step is just to cut a piece of pipe that would fit in here. Now we're going to run into another issue that we discussed yesterday. So I know just from experience that this pipe, I don't necessarily need to measure it, but right in the middle of the coupling here is about where this pipe is going to stop. So we're just going to bottom out. And then on the back side, need to do the same thing right at this corner. I'm going to go ahead and measure it because it's going to be hard to do. The depth of this is going to be about 1.5 inches. And this gap is also 1.5 inches, so 3 inches. Plus the distance here, which is about another inch. So let me see if I can get that. So yeah, that's about right, 4 inches. If I were to put the tape measure right here, measure down to 4 inches. I'm gonna cut it a little shorter, only because it's gonna be a tight fit in there. So I'm gonna cut it to 3.5 inches. Mark the pipe at 3.5 inches. Take my pipes all. Clean everything. Then I'm going to glue everything. So this is going to be a problem, or it could be a problem. It's going to be hard to fit this pipe in there, like we demonstrated in the last video. But we're going to muscle this one in too, like we did. I'm going to pull up, or pull this out, slide that on, and then I'm going to, without breaking it, slide it on and push it down and hold it. Now typically you would like to be able to twist the pipe, but we can't do it in this situation, so we're just going to hold it until it cures, essentially. So with this fast setting clear pipe glue, we can turn this system on, especially on a hot day like this. We could turn the system back on in a matter of minutes, really, depending on what the pressure was. So that's pretty much it. Right now this valve's in the run position. Close the valve. Now we'll probably wait 10, maybe 15 minutes. Turn the well back on, and then we're good to go. So this shouldn't leak anymore. So anyway, that was a good demonstration on how to fix pipe and then dealing with threaded fittings on pipe. So I appreciate it, and thanks for watching.